There's a person in your office right now who brings lunch from home in a container he washed the night before. He drives a 2019 Honda Accord with 71,000 miles on it. He declines the group order on Fridays, not every Friday, but most of them. He has the same desk lamp he bought in 2017. When someone mentions a vacation they just booked, he listens and asks a genuine question about the destination and then goes back to his screen. You have worked near him for 4 years. You know what he orders at the holiday party. You have never seen him stressed about money. You have also never seen him spend it. You have a theory that he is careful, that he is saving, that he is the responsible type who maxes his 401k and clips digital coupons and will probably retire comfortably at 65 with a paid-off house in a mid-sized city. That theory is not wrong. It is just very incomplete. He owns 6 car washes. Not a piece of one. Not a silent stake in something his cousin runs. 6 locations, fully operational, spread across 2 metro areas. He started the first one at 29. He is 41 now. The business last year generated $2.1 million in take-home income after operating costs and debt service. Before personal income taxes, which we will come back to and which matter, but the number before that conversation is $2.1 million. He is sitting 3 desks from you earning a salary that is not the point. Car washes are not glamorous. This is not an accident. Nobody at a dinner party leans forward when you say car washes. There is no mythology around them, no documentary series, no podcast about the grind of tunnel wash operations. If you said you owned 6 car washes, someone would nod and change the subject, and that response is one of the structural advantages of the business, which we will get to. Compare this to something that reads as impressive: a restaurant group, a boutique hotel, a tech startup with a logo people recognize. Those businesses attract attention. They also attract overhead, volatility, staff turnover at a rate that requires a full-time HR function, and margins that make investors nervous in year 3. A car wash, operated correctly, does none of those things loudly. It does one thing, repeatedly, at high volume, with a cost structure that is relatively predictable once the location is stabilized. The gross revenue of a mature express tunnel wash can run between $1.2 and $2.4 million per year per location depending on market, traffic count, and how aggressively the membership program is managed. That last part matters more than almost anything else, and we will unpack it in detail. The $2.1 million number needs a brief frame before anything else. This is not revenue. Revenue across 6 locations is a much larger figure. This is what remains after the business pays its operating expenses, its employees, its chemical and utility costs, its equipment maintenance reserves, and its debt service on the real estate and equipment financing that built the locations. What is left after all of that is $2.1 million that flows to the owner. Some of that comes through as salary or distributions from the business entities. Some of it has tax treatment that a properly structured car wash operation can optimize in ways that a W-2 earner cannot. The details of that structure belong in the next section. The point here is that the number is real, it is annual, and it arrives whether or not the owner is present at any of the 6 locations on a given Tuesday. That is the central question this story is built around. Not how someone gets rich, which is a premise that papers over the actual mechanics, but how 6 physical locations, each running cars through a tunnel on a fixed piece of real estate in an ordinary market, produce that outcome reliably, without media coverage, without a high profile, without the person who built them signaling anything to anyone at the office. The answer lives in 5 places. Membership plans, which convert one-time customers into recurring monthly revenue that smooths the income curve in ways that a per-wash model never could. The labor model, which in an express tunnel operation is leaner than most food or retail businesses because the equipment does most of the work. Volume, which is a function of site selection, traffic counts, and throughput efficiency per hour. The real estate and lease structure underneath each location, which in several cases the owner controls in ways that add asset value independent of the operating business. And operational discipline, which is the least interesting sounding driver and the one that explains the most. These are not secrets. They are not proprietary. They are available in industry publications and franchise disclosure documents and operator forums that anyone can read. The reason most people do not act on them is not ignorance. It is that the path to 6 locations from 0 requires a sequence of decisions that compound over time the same way a portfolio does, and each decision is unglamorous, and none of them feel significant in isolation, and there is no moment where someone hands you a certificate. You just keep going, and one day you are 41 with a container lunch and a 2019 Accord and $2.1 million coming in annually, and you have never once mentioned it to the person 3 desks away. There is also a reason he does not mention it. Privacy is part of it. Safety is part of it. Relationships are part of it. When people know what you have, they recalibrate who you are to them, sometimes consciously, often not. Expectations shift. Requests follow. The dynamic that existed before the number was known does not survive the number becoming known. He has thought about this. He made a decision. He keeps the lamp from 2017 and says no to the group order on most Fridays and asks genuine questions about other people's vacations. That is not performance. That is a considered choice. It is also a strategy, and it turns out to be a remarkably effective one. Here is how the number is built. Each location runs as an express tunnel wash. No detailing, no full-service interior cleaning, no attendants leaning through your window with a vacuum. The car enters, the equipment runs, the car exits. The cycle time at peak operation is approximately 45 seconds from bumper to clear. That is not a detail. That is the entire labor model compressed into a single number. Revenue at each site comes from three places. Memberships, which are unlimited monthly plans at tiered price points, typically ranging from $19 to $39 per month depending on the wash level. Single washes, which capture the customer who is not yet a member or who is passing through from outside the trade area. And ancillary income, which includes vending dispensers, air fresheners, fragrance options, and matte cleaning stations near the exit. The vending is not glamorous. Neither is the $40,000 it generates annually across 6 locations without requiring a single additional employee. The membership engine is the foundation. A mature express tunnel location in a mid-sized market with a well-run membership program carries somewhere between 800 and 1,600 active members. Take the midpoint, 1,200 members. Average plan value $27 per month. That is $32,400 in monthly revenue before a single car pulls up for a single visit wash. It arrives on the 1st. It arrives in February when it snows 4 days straight and the tunnel runs at 30% of its normal volume. It arrives in August when the lot is full at 11 in the morning. The membership base is the reason car wash economics look different from most retail businesses. The floor is set before the month begins. Single washes add on top. A site running 200 single wash cars per day at an average ticket of 14, accounting for upsells taken by some customers and base washes taken by others, generates $2,800 per day in variable revenue. At 300 operating days annually, that is $840,000. Add the membership base at $32,400 per month, and the annualized revenue from one location approaches $1.23 million. The vending and ancillary add roughly $65,000 more. A single stabilized site generates approximately $1.3 million in gross revenue. Cost structure at one location. Chemicals and utilities run 8 to 11% of revenue. For a $1.3 million site, call it $130,000 annually. Labor is the next largest line. An express tunnel operation employs a site manager and several part-time attendants for traffic direction and customer service. Not interior cleaning, not mechanical operation. Total labor cost per site, including payroll taxes and benefits for the manager, runs approximately $180,000 per year. Rent or mortgage service on the real estate, depending on whether the location is leased or owned, averages $140,000 annually across the portfolio, weighted toward the owned sites which carry debt service rather than rent. Equipment maintenance and replacement reserves, funded monthly into a dedicated account, run $60,000 per site per year. Payment processing fees at roughly 2.5% of revenue add another $32,000. Total operating cost per location, approximately $542,000. Gross revenue of $1.3 million minus $542,000 in operating costs leaves roughly $758,000 in operating income per site before the owner draws anything. Across 6 locations, not all identical, not all at the same stage of maturity, the blended portfolio generates approximately $3.8 million in operating income annually. Debt service on equipment financing and real estate loans across the portfolio runs approximately $1.7 million per year. What remains is $2.1 million. That is the number. That is how it is constructed. Now the operating model that makes 6 locations manageable for one person who also maintains a desk job. Each site runs on identical protocols. The chemical dosing sequences are standardized. The equipment maintenance schedules are identical across all 6 tunnels. The KPIs tracked weekly are the same at every location. Membership count, average revenue per car, uptime percentage. Chemical cost is a percentage of revenue. If one site's chemical cost moves from 9% to 13%, the system surfaces it before it becomes a margin problem. Standardization is not efficiency for its own sake. It is the operating condition that makes delegation possible. Site managers are the actual business at each location. They are hired, trained, compensated well relative to the local labor market, and given clear accountability metrics. When a manager knows that uptime percentage and membership growth are tracked weekly and reported to ownership, behavior adjusts accordingly. The owner is not inspecting tunnels on weekday mornings. The system is, location selection is where the most consequential decisions were made, years before any of this math was possible. Each site was evaluated on traffic count first. A car wash located on a road that moves 25,000 cars per day operates in a fundamentally different category than one on a road that moves 9,000. The demographic overlay matters because membership conversion rates are higher in markets with moderate to high discretionary income. Competition density was mapped within a 3-mile radius of each candidate site. Visibility from the road and the ingress and egress geometry, meaning how easily a car can enter and exit without hesitation, were evaluated in person, not on a map. One location was passed over because the left turn ingress required a gap in traffic that did not reliably exist at 5 in the afternoon. That detail is the kind of thing that does not appear on a financial model, but determines whether the model ever performs. Seasonality is real and it is planned for. Weather events suppress volume. A region that gets measurable winter weather sees revenue dips that a membership floor softens but does not eliminate. Each site maintains a cash reserve equivalent to 3 months of fixed operating costs. Equipment downtime is a when, not an if. A conveyor system that goes down on a Saturday morning in July is a significant revenue event. Preventive maintenance contracts and relationships with equipment service providers in each market exist before the breakdown occurs, not after. The portfolio of 6 locations distributes risk across 2 metro areas. A road construction project that cuts traffic to one site for 4 months does not threaten the system. A competitor opening near one location does not restructure the income. Shared vendor relationships across the portfolio produce chemical pricing that a single site operator cannot access. The math compounds because the structure was built to let it. The first site was not built, it was bought. That distinction matters more than most people realize before they are sitting across from a broker with a package of financials stapled in the upper left corner. Building new means site control, permitting, utility connections, construction timelines, equipment installation, and a membership base that starts at 0 on the day the tunnel opens. Buying existing means inheriting a membership base, an equipment history, a staff, and a set of financials that either hold up under scrutiny or don't. Both paths work. They do not work the same way, and they do not require the same kind of capital or patience. A new build in a good market runs between $4 million and $6 million all in by the time the land, site preparation, tunnel construction, equipment, and soft costs are accounted for. The first 12 months of operation are the hardest. Volume is below stabilized projections. The membership base is being built from 0. The equipment is running, but the staff is new and the processes are being learned in real time. Year 1 cash flow from a new build frequently does not cover debt service. That is not a sign the investment is broken, it is the shape of the curve. An existing wash purchase from an owner who is retiring or burning out or simply ready to sell comes with a running membership base, a history of revenue, and equipment that has a known service record. It also comes with the price premium that a buyer pays for all of that. Capitalization rates on stabilized express tunnel operations in mid-sized markets have compressed. A site generating $750,000 in operating income does not sell at a 5 cap anymore in most markets. It sells at a 6 or a 7, which puts the purchase price somewhere between $10 million and $12 million for a single mature site. That number requires serious capital and serious financing. The financing structure across a 6-site portfolio is not one loan. It is a layered architecture that was assembled over years, not months. SBA 7A and 504 loans remain the primary vehicle for first-time and early-stage buyers entering the car wash space. The 504 specifically, which finances fixed assets including real estate and equipment, works well for buyers who intend to own the real estate underneath the wash. Terms extend to 25 years on the real estate component. Down payments can be as low as 10% for owner-occupied commercial real estate. The approval process is not fast. It requires 2 years of personal tax returns, a business plan with projections, a clean credit profile, and a sponsor willing to do the documentation work. The documentation is tedious. It is also the reason the capital is accessible. Conventional commercial loans enter the picture at the second and third acquisitions once the portfolio carries a performance history that a lender can underwrite against. Rates are higher than SBA in some cases. The covenants are tighter. The terms are shorter. But the process moves faster, and for a buyer with operating cash flow from existing sites, the coverage ratios make approval more straightforward. Seller financing is the third leg. Several of the acquisitions in this portfolio involved sellers who carried a portion of the purchase price in the form of a promissory note. A seller taking back 15% to 25% of the deal in a note at a fixed rate serves multiple interests. The buyer reduces the outside capital required at closing. The seller receives an ongoing income stream from an asset they no longer have to operate. The structure also signals something about the seller's confidence in the business they are handing over. A seller who will not hold any paper is worth understanding more carefully before closing. Debt amplifies in both directions. A site generating $750,000 in operating income purchased with $1.2 million in annual debt service leaves $550,000 in cash flow. The same site overpaid for or purchased at a moment when rates spike unexpectedly converts that cash flow margin into a much tighter number. The first question in any acquisition is not whether the business generates income. It is whether it generates enough income above debt service to absorb a bad quarter without requiring a capital call from the owner. Due diligence is where deals reveal themselves. Water and sewer capacity is not a footnote. An express tunnel wash recycles water, but it still consumes municipal supply and discharges into the sewer system at significant volume. Sites that are near the capacity limits of local infrastructure face permit restrictions that constrain throughput. That constraint does not appear in 3 years of historical financials if the prior operator was already running against it. Environmental concerns attach specifically to sites with a history of prior use involving fuel storage, chemical handling, or industrial activity. Phase 1 environmental assessments are not optional. They are the minimum. Phase 2 is ordered when Phase 1 surfaces a concern. Buying a site with an unresolved environmental liability means inheriting that liability at closing. Equipment age is evaluated on a component-by-component basis, not as a single line item. A tunnel with a 2-year-old conveyor and a 12-year-old dryer system and a water reclaim unit that is past its service life is not a well-maintained site. It is 3 separate capital events that are not yet on the income statement. Each one is negotiated at the purchase price or reserved for in post-closing capital planning before the deal closes, not after. Historical financials are verified against bank statements, not just tax returns. Owner-operated businesses have a known tendency to run personal expenses through the business. Add-backs are legitimate when they are documented and non-recurring. They are also a place where aggressive sellers and optimistic brokers sometimes construct a picture of profitability that does not survive contact with actual operations. Permits and zoning are confirmed, not assumed. A car wash operating on a parcel that requires a conditional use permit is a different risk profile from one operating by right. When ownership changes, some municipalities treat the transfer as a trigger for permit review. That review can delay opening, impose new conditions, or surface requirements that were not enforced on the prior owner. The people infrastructure is the second system that has to work. Each site has a manager who is hired for judgment, not just mechanical competence. The manager handles daily operations, staff scheduling, customer escalations, and equipment coordination with the service provider. They are the first call when something fails. They are also the person who decides whether a part-time attendant becomes a keeper or a problem. The manager compensation structure includes a base salary and a performance component tied to membership count growth and uptime percentage, not revenue in the abstract. The specific metrics that the manager can actually influence through daily decisions. Training is standardized and documented. New site leads spend time at an existing site before they open a new one. They learn the maintenance checklist by completing it alongside someone who has done it for 2 years. They learn the membership conversation by watching it happen at a site that converts at a high rate. The playbook exists in writing. It is also learned by doing because the written version and the live version are not identical and both are necessary. Mystery shopping runs on a rotating schedule. An outside service visits each site quarterly. The report covers cleanliness at the entry, staff interaction quality, tunnel condition at exit, and vending functionality. The results go to the site manager and to ownership simultaneously. No one is surprised by their own performance data. Surprise is not the mechanism. Accountability is. The failure points are not mysteries. They are documented in the history of every operator who has exited the business with less than they entered with. Overpaying is the most common. A buyer who pays a 5 cap for a site that is already at peak membership penetration and carries aging equipment has purchased the ceiling of that site's performance at full price. There is no margin left for the error that will come in year 2 or 3. Underestimating repairs is the second. Equipment that runs continuously in a wet environment degrades on a schedule that is knowable in advance. A buyer who does not budget a replacement reserve before they need one finds the reserve inside their operating cash flow at the worst moment. Poor location flow destroys sites that would otherwise perform. A wash on a high-traffic road with a problematic ingress sees its conversion rate suppressed every hour the lot is hard to enter. The cars pass. They do not stop. High traffic count and good access geometry are not the same condition, and they must both be present. Weak controls surface as theft, shrinkage, and unaccountable variance in chemical usage or cash handling. A site manager without clear accountability metrics operates in a low-visibility environment. Some operate well without structure, others do not. The system is designed so that the outcome does not depend on which kind of person is working that day. Membership churn is the slow bleed that a monthly report can obscure if the right metric is not tracked. New member additions are not the signal. Net membership changes. A site adding 60 members per month and losing 55 is not a growing site. It is a site with a retention problem wearing the costume of a sales story. The scaling sequence follows a rule that was not written down but was enforced by the limits of available attention. The second site did not open until the first site was stable. Stable means the manager does not call with routine problems. Stable means the monthly report is predictable within a range. Stable means ownership can go 2 weeks without visiting and be confident in what the report will say. That condition took 18 months at the first site. The second site opened in month 22. The third did not open until the second was stable. Each addition was funded in part by the cash flow of the existing sites, which reduced the outside capital required and reduced the debt load on each new acquisition. The pause between sites 4 and 5 was deliberate. One manager at site 3 was not performing. The membership numbers were flat. The mystery shop report was inconsistent. Adding a fifth site before site 3 was resolved would have distributed a management problem across a larger system and made it harder to isolate. The problem was addressed. The manager was replaced. Site 3 stabilized over the following quarter, then Site 5 opened. Quality across 6 locations does not maintain itself. It is maintained by the same reports, the same checklists, the same performance conversations, and the same visit cadence that was established at Site 1. The system did not become harder to operate as it grew. It became more valuable because it already worked. That is the part that is easy to miss when you look at the income number. The number is real. The system behind it is older than the number and quieter and considerably less interesting to talk about at a dinner party. But the system is what made the number possible, and the system is what makes it continue. The coworkers think you're broke because you behave like someone who is careful with money. The car is 8 years old. The wardrobe is unremarkable. You do not upgrade when a promotion arrives. You do not announce when a site clears a record month. Lifestyle inflation is a choice, and the choice was made quietly a long time ago. The frugality is not performance. It is just what happens when the number that matters is on a balance sheet, not on your wrist. When someone asks what you do outside work, neutral answers exist and they are not lies. You have investments. You stay busy. That is accurate. Privacy is not deception. Separating your day job identity from your ownership structure is not something you owe anyone an explanation for. The people who need to know the details are your CPA, your attorney, and your lender. The rest of the world does not have a claim on your financial architecture. There is an ethical dimension here that deserves to be said plainly. The leverage that built this portfolio is real, and it carried real risk at every stage. Glamorizing it skips the part where a bad quarter or a misread acquisition could have compressed years of work into a very different story. Respecting the circumstances of the people around you means not turning your outcome into a benchmark they are expected to measure against. 2.1 million in annual take-home demands serious tax planning before it demands anything else. Entity structure, depreciation schedules, qualified business income deductions, and liquidity reserves are not finishing touches. They are load-bearing. Reinvestment and diversification exist on a spectrum. 6 car washes in one region is concentration. Knowing that is part of managing it. The actionable version of everything in this video is not complicated. Find a boring cash flow business. Learn the unit economics until they are not boring anymore. Build a system that runs without you. Then scale the system, not just the count. If you have questions about the specific numbers behind any of these sites, put them in the comments. Subscribe for the follow-up breakdown. It is already being built.